Everything that matters to me was in place before I wrote The Shack. And it took me all of 50 years to wipe the face of my father off the face of God. Grew up in the highlands of New Guinea. I was a year old when my parents went in as pioneer missionaries, and that's the world I grew up in. Tribal culture, 20 to 40,000 members of this particular tribe, over 100 square miles. It's one of the biggest tribes in New Guinea, and so it's my first real language, my dreaming language. So I grew up as a third culture kid inside the fierce anger of my father. I didn't know as a child that his father had broken his capacity to be a father. I didn't know that he'd been orphaned when he was 12, that his father had run away with a 13-year-old little girl. All I knew was my dad was furious and angry. But as a child, you always process it as your fault. I remember when my dad would be furiously raging, and the only way that I tried to stop him was to keep yelling at him, "I'll be good. I'll be good." So I'm trying to figure out how to get that God to like me. And there was always a sense that he was mildly disgusted. So you add all the complications of religion to that, and then the other tributary in my childhood, which was sexual abuse. It happened in the tribal culture before I was 5, and enough that by the time I was 6, I was pretty twisted up. But then I got sent to boarding school, and the first nights the big boys came and owned my sexuality. They molested the little boys. And that, coupled with the fact that going to boarding school exposed the reality that I wasn't white, that I wasn't a Donnie, I wasn't a tribal person, and I lost my culture, and I lost my color, and I lost my tribe. I lost everything. Stuck in my head. Everything below the neck was broken. My addictions existed in the inside house, the house of the shack. And that's the imagery for the shack. The house on the inside that people help you build. And then for me, I just built the facade outside, hoping that if I could just be perfect, then I'd be worth the affection and the attention of God. But not letting anybody into my inside world, being absolutely trapped by secrets. Through a series of remarkable events, I end up getting married to Kim. And Kim was not a hider. What you see is what you get. So Kim saves my life, but pays a really high price for it. Kim found out that I was in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends, and my world absolutely imploded. All the facade came down, all the religiosity came down that was associated with that. Everything was just leveled. And the invitation was, you go back into your shack and figure out why you're so screwed up. And my alternative was to run away one more time, and that would have been to kill myself. And suicide, for those of us who come from abuse history, suicide has always been somewhat of a companion, and the last way to run away, because when you hit the bottom, you have to face what you've done and all the consequences, and there are a lot of them. I look back and I think, what kind of grace was it that I didn't kill myself and that I didn't run away? I was too exhausted to run away. Where would I go that I wouldn't take myself with me? And it's me that I'm sick of. I pulled the yellow pages off the shelf and looked under counselors and made an appointment with total strangers and ended up in a therapeutic relationship with a man named Scott Mitchell, who became my friend. And that started a lot of hard work, of which I almost bailed out, suicidally almost bailed out about 4 months into it, because it got so hard. It took me 4 days to tell her all the secrets that she didn't know. I mean, it obliterated her. But I'm grateful for the process, because I began to learn what the truth of my being is. Underneath, covered up by all the lies, all the accusations, all the incriminations, all the shame, underneath all that, the truth of my being is that I'm pure of heart. So 11 years of deconstructing and reconstructing, and Kim and I now are the best we've ever been.
'Cause you love me, how you made me, and I'm made
impossible to do the work in participation with the Holy Spirit who knows you and come to a place where you're whole. Kim had been saying, you know, someday as a gift for our kids, would you just write something that puts in one place how you think, because you think outside the box. And on the train to one of my 3 jobs, wrote a little story, got it done for Christmas, made 15 copies at Office Depot, that did everything I wanted it to do. So it starts to generate all this thing when my friends start giving it away to their friends. 26 publishers turn it down, 3 guys in California want to make it into a movie. So when the publishers turn it down, 2 of them create a publishing house. And we're hoping to get through 10,000 copies in 2 years, and we're through 66,000 copies in 5 months. It's now become this phenomenon that nobody saw coming. In retrospect, I can almost hear it now. God says, well, Paul, you know this little story you're writing over here for Christmas for your kids, you know? Maybe I'll bless that. You give it to your kids and then I'll give it to mine. And that's what happened. Because I think every day God comes and says, so Paul, are we going to go on your adventure today or ours?